and they are too. The more I get to know them, they're exact opposites. But, I'm extremely open. And I'm open with everything. Like, I leave doors open and drawers open, and I don't screw on the toothpaste tight. And although you wouldn't think those are big deals at all, they drove him absolutely insane. And he would go around shutting doors. Well, I would literally walk into him because I knew I'd left it open. I'm like, why did you just shut the door? I just hit, and it would cause a huge fight. Yeah, we would get into a fight. I mean, bad over the door. I'm like, I want the door open. And he's like, well, I want the door shut. And I'm like,
well, we didn't know what to do, like when they were.
Yeah, we didn't know yet. But we had to learn that there was strengths in both of those things. That me being open, if I wasn't open, well, you wouldn't know anything about us at all. We would be like,
which I like.
But there's strengths to that, and to recognize that those gifts are there. And I think that's really one of the only ways, too, that you guys can minister together without any jealousy or without, trying to belittle the other person or whatever. I just think that was a really valid point that I just wanted to elaborate on.
We have some young people here. We have some single people as well. Could you answer for us, maybe, is it possible, how is it possible to save sex before marriage?
It's possible. It's not an easy thing to do. Allen and I, just to give you a little background, so he was 40 when we met. He's only 41 now, but how come we've been married 15 years? And I just told the age. He was 40 and had been married twice, and I was 28 and had been married once. And so, life had already been awakened, in us. So it wasn't like we were young, but I really believe that the biggest point of keeping yourself pure before the Lord is just refusing to put yourself in compromising situations. Is loving the Lord your God with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and just not putting yourself physically in a compromising situation. We just declared we were both re-virginized, before, and we waited until marriage. And that's an awkward thing at a very later time in life. And so we got married really quickly, so that helped. We met in March. He asked me to marry him in June, and we were married in August, and I was pregnant in November. So in 1999, we partied like it was 1999. We had the Prince song at our wedding. But quickly, so it wasn't a long, drawn-out thing, So I just think, you just don't awaken love before it's time. You just don't put yourself, and not even just physically, but emotionally. When you begin to share the desires of your heart or dreams that God's given in your heart, it awakens something within you. And if you don't see future with someone, and if you don't see yourself in a committed, lifelong relationship with someone, the Word says guard your heart with all diligence. So to me, living a guarded life doesn't mean walls. It just means that you're protecting that thing for your spouse.
Why you should wait? What are some reasons? You say one thing.
One of the things I would say, especially men that are in this room, physical or sexual relationship, especially when first entered into, is different from a man and a woman. So what that means is this, that when a woman gives herself physically to a man, it's not just a physical thing. There are strong emotions that come with that, especially from female perspective. It's the way God wired us. It is the point of the highest intimacy between a man and a woman. And a woman takes something different away from that than men do. A lot of times men can engage in something just as a physical act. So we as men, it is on us. If you are single in this room, if a single man, or you're going through that, or if you have a single man or you're involved with one, the thing is to stop the pressure. Do not pressure that in a woman, because what you're doing is you're violating that emotional bond. And believe me, if you wait that thing out and you let let it go and invest in them in an emotional way. What you wait on will be much better down the road.
And why we wait is because it's God's order. I mean, He instructs us to. I mean, it said, don't let the marriage bed be defiled. So, I mean, it's God's way, and, you know, I think the fire of sex is made for the marriage bed. It's made for the fireplace of marriage. And when you get that outside of the fireplace of marriage, if you can use a visualization, someone's going to get burned. I mean, that's just the reality of it, because there's, you know, something there to work with.
Y'all touched on this a little bit, and I think it's extremely important, so maybe you can go a little bit deeper on how opposites attract, why that's important, and most probably, when a person finds the right one, it's going to be an exact opposite. Tell us about that.
One of the things that, and the way I like to use the connotation of it, if you can imagine, you know, your car battery, if you open the hood, it has a positive and a negative pole. If you take a piece of wire or a piece of metal and you put one on the positive, one on the negative, you get a spark. So a lot of times that opposite influence in our life is the spark that's needed. Believe me, if left to my own demise, I would be. Tina is a spark to me. She's you know, not only do I find her physically attractive, but she stimulates me intellectually. She keeps things fresh in my life. She brings a new perspective. So God brings those gifts together, not only for the benefit of you, but for the other person. Because what He's doing in that opposite attraction is drawing out of you. And just like the poles on a magnet, they draw it. The opposite poles come together. If you try to put two similar poles together, two positives will go apart. So the opposite poles draw those things, and I believe the gifts of God out of each other.
It keeps it fun. It keeps it fun. I mean, how boring would it be if he was like me, you know? I always say I'm the Amplified and he's like the New King James Version. You know, if he were like me, oh my word, we speak like 20,000 more words a day, I think, or 10,000 more words a day.
Do you find it the case, though, when you're talking to young couples or even older couples, that when they first get married, or even when they're dating, that they're doing their best to try to change one another?
Yes.
So what about?
That is true. Yeah. And the one thing I tell people, and I know this for a fact, I know because it happened to me, is there's one thing that will change you, and that's the Lord. That's your relationship with Jesus Christ. It's the only thing that will save you, and it's the only thing that will change you. So, first of all, if you are someone new in a new relationship with someone, and you're immediately going into that relationship saying they need to change, well, that's a red flag, first of all. Now, there's nothing wrong with praying for that person and say, for instance, there's things going on in their lives, praying for them, and I want this to be eliminated from their life. But to go into a relationship with someone that you know, for you to get along with them, to have that bonded relationship, this has to change. You really need to think about that. And my counsel to that person would be, are you really sure this is the path you want to go down? Because you're making a lifelong commitment.
We have to realize we're not general managers of the universe. That's the Holy Spirit's job. You know, I mean, it's His job to change people and to do that. So, and that's why it's so important too to not awaken love before it's time. To recognize that God created us with differences. I mean, when you're talking about sin, that's one thing. If they're off into something they shouldn't be, then you need to reevaluate that on the front end. So I always say, when you look at those little red flags, those little yellow flags, that's just the Holy Spirit. These little things. He's screaming like, "Don't go over that cliff." Just wait. Because we should be. I always say we can be one, but we don't have to be the same. So we can be one in that covenant, in that relationship, but we don't have to be the same in how we're going to go.